It might be an abbreviated edition of World Politics. We'll see what's going on and all along those lines. So, definitely one of the stories that is out there, and I was actually supposed to be at this meeting, is that the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People elected a new leadership. So, there's new leadership that is going to be running this long-time Public Action Committee. And all along those lines, I'm seeing the picture of Floyd McKissick. So, it looks like Floyd McKissick might be one of the people that'll be doing this job and all along those lines. So definitely there is new leadership. So definitely they announced their newly elected and re-elected leaders who will guide the organization over the next 2 years. The elections were held during general body meetings last Thursday, December 5th, and the new leadership team will officially take office during the annual meeting in January, which is open to the public. So former North Carolina Senator Floyd McKissick Jr., son of the late civil rights leader Floyd McKissick, will head the new leadership team as the organization's chairman. Other key appointments include Shay Ramirez, who will transition from second vice chair to first vice chair, and former County Commissioner Nemishni Burns, who will take on the role of second vice chair. Selma Glenn White will continue as third vice chair, while Dr. Tara Fikes remains executive secretary. Veronica Robinson. Additional elected officers include Veronica Robinson, Assistant Executive Director, Shanana Barris, Recording Secretary, Keith Bishop, Treasurer, Tammy Hall, Finance Committee Chair, Elaine O'Neill, Public Political Committee Chair, Donna Hughes, Political Committee Vice Chair, Angelique Stallings, Civic Committee Chair. Rosa Anderson will be running things in terms of being up there as the Civic Committee Vice Chair. Gwendella Beasley will be the Public Relations Chair, and there are some other jobs that are there as well. I was trying to see if one of our regulars on the network, Jan Cromartie, had got a job that I know he was shooting for as well, and all along those lines, but did not get to whether that had taken place or not. So I might reach out to him and see if he got that job that he was looking for or not. But we'll definitely see how this new leadership goes on, because political action committees are local governments and they can be very important and all along those lines. So definitely that was just one of the things that was going on in the local news and everything like that. Let's see if there's anything that major going on in the national scene, particularly around politics and all along those lines, because definitely folks have been paying a number of attention to political things happening in the world and all along those lines. So definitely, apparently, Mitch McConnell got an ovation after making a swipe at Trump. So this was 2 days ago. He said America will not be made great again, and he received an ovation after a swipe at Trump. So in a speech at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in California on Saturday, outgoing Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican Kentucky, served notice that he is not entirely pleased with the return of Donald Trump without mentioning his name. According to a report from Politico, one comment from the senior Republican seemed aimed at the president-elect as he discussed America's military future, telling the audience within the party Ronald Reagan once led so capably, it is increasingly fashionable to suggest that the sort of global leadership he modeled is no longer America's place. He then added, but let's be absolutely clear, America will not be made great again by those who are content to manage our decline, with Politico's Connor O'Brien and Joe Gold writing McConnell received an enthusiastic ovation when he concluded speaking. So according to the Politico report, though he didn't mention Trump, McConnell's remarks underscore that he could be a foil to the incoming administration on national security issues next year when he leaves leadership. So McConnell's speech on defense comes at a time when the president-elect is standing by and watching his nominee for Secretary of Defense, Fox News personality Pete Hedges, struggling to convince Republican Party senators, including McConnell, to support him despite allegations of public drunkenness and accusations of sexual assault. So definitely that's just one of the things that we're seeing in the news and all along those lines. Cheney has responded, Dick Cheney, to Trump's jail threats and all along those lines. So that's one of the other stories that we're seeing in terms of politics and all along those lines. So, like I said, a lot of things are happening in the political discourse and all along those lines. So we'll see what folks have to say about that. And maybe some folks will be joining us later on this particular show, and we'll see if they've got things that they want to add to the conversation as well, because there's always interesting things happening in the political front. And of course, that's what we talk about here on World Edition on World Politics. So we're going to see if anybody else joins us and all along those lines, but definitely we'll play it by ear and see if anybody else is willing to join in this conversation and what is going to go on in that way and in that kind of situation. So definitely a lot of folks are paying attention to the news, and of course people are still asking about different people that are still going for jobs in the administration and whether they should get those jobs or and all along those lines. So it should be quite interesting to see how folks respond to a number of these political issues and what their thoughts are in this political front. So we'll definitely be paying attention into news stories like that and seeing what folks have to say about a number of these stories that are out there on the political landscape and all in that kind of way. So, like I said, we did have the comment from Mitch McConnell and all along those lines, and we'll see if others have comments that they're going to make as well. So, a lot of people are paying attention to a number of the things taking place in the world and around the world and all along those lines. So I'm going to see if I can pull up some other news stories on the political front and see if folks might join us later. Otherwise, it might be an abbreviated version of world politics, and we'll see where we go with this and all along those lines. But definitely there are a number of things taking place, including, as we talked about on World Edition earlier today, Luigi Mangione, the United Healthcare shooting suspect, fights extradition to New York. So there are efforts to, I guess, have this suspect contest his extradition back to New York. So definitely seems like he doesn't want to come back to this area and everything like that. I know on World Edition we didn't get a chance to talk to it, but Lee Newton Rhodes was asking whether Syria would be seen as a failure of the Biden administration, and definitely that will be interesting to see how this plays out in the legacy of Biden and whether folks are thinking that this is a negative or a scar on his reputation and all along those lines. So definitely if you got some thoughts around that as audience members and fans of this particular show, let us know your thoughts on that and whether you think that this will be a scar on the Biden presidency and how you would feel about that and along those lines. So another story that was going on with the Syrians celebrate the fall of Assad as Israel is accused of a land grab. So after ousting Assad, Syrian rebels rushed to impose order in Damascus. So Syrians celebrated the fall of Assad as Israel is accused of a land grab. So that's something else that we're seeing in the news as well. And Israel bombs Syria and seizes territory as Netanyahu pledges to change the face of the Middle East. So Israeli warplanes pounded Syria as troops reportedly advanced deeper into the country, and Israel did confirm attacks on naval fleet in Latakia. So definitely that's something else that is on the political front in the world as well. And South Korea's ex-defense minister is formally arrested over martial law imposition. So South Korea's opposition leader determined to oust President Yoon after martial law, and South Korea democracy held after a 6-hour power play. And some folks are asking, what does this say for democracies elsewhere? And South Korea, as I said, arrested its ex-defense minister over the martial law efforts. And Israel's Netanyahu decried absurd charges at corruption trial appearance, and Netanyahu knocked Obama and John Kerry in his first appearance at the corruption trial. So definitely that could be going on, and folks may have some thoughts around that as well. And Taiwan's defense ministry says a large Chinese military force has been detected near the island. So China's maritime movement around Taiwan are the largest in decades, Taipei says. Taiwan says China has deployed its largest fleet of ships in decades China stages the largest show of force in decades after the U.S. visit by Taiwan's Lei, and all along those lines. I've got Jim E joining me. I'm glad he's joining me, and all along those lines, so we'll see what kind of thoughts he's got on a number of these news stories and everything. It looks like there's a lot of questions going on, Jim, around the Middle East, and even Russian Navy ships are anchored off of the Syrian coast, as the satellite imagery is showing. And some folks are saying that Putin just suffered a major defeat by the what went on in Syria, and there, I think the leader of Syria is now in Russia, having been given
Asylum.
the word I'm looking for, given asylum and everything. So, what's your take on this whole situation with Syria? Have you been following this story at all?
Well, it's fascinating. And of course, it's 50 years of dictatorship that has finally come to an end. So there's reason to celebrate. And people are celebrating. But there is so much work to be done. And there's probably a lot of pain and suffering coming in the future from the people of Syria. Is it a defeat for Putin? Of course it is. He is strongly invested in the Assad regime. And, this is one of the things that his invasion of the Ukraine has taken up all of his resources. So these resources would have been available to the Assad regime if he had not been doing what he's doing in the Ukraine. So this is coming back to bite him, and he's lost an ally. However, what's going on in the Middle East is very, very unclear. So we can't draw any general conclusions, and we hope the Syrians have a prosperous future in their near future. But I think that there will be many, many struggles. There are no institutions there. There are no things that we take for granted in a society that's already been developed, and so these things have to be built. And how are you going to go about building them? There's going to be pain and suffering along the way, but it's still a reason to be happy that dictatorship is gone. But who knows what's going to replace it? Is it going to be some organization that's going to be terrorist in nature? Who knows? I don't.
Yeah, none of us know, and everything on that same line. I know that apparently Netanyahu knocked Obama and John Kerry in his first appearance, and I've even heard some people that have been critical of Biden for his policy on Syria. So apparently, even though he's got his own wars going on with Hezbollah and against Hamas, apparently Netanyahu is taking a stand in his own country in a corruption trial. So I don't know whether these going to be a leader that for much longer, or there's going to be some pushback on him as well, because he's definitely had an iron hand on Israel for a number of years as well.
No, Bibi shouldn't be taking shots at anybody. It's one of the things that if you're in power, then you're not going to go to jail, and we see that at home in the United States. And so he's going to be interested in keeping things messy in Israel to hold on to power. So I'm hoping that one day he will be replaced as well, and things can have some chance for something like a two-state solution, or something that will settle this long-running horrible situation in the Middle East. And there has to be a way out. There has to be a way to peace.
I would hope there's a way to peace and everything like that. I didn't know that Milei, the Argentina president, apparently counts Trump and Musk as fans of his and everything. And apparently he's got something called the chainsaw approach, which I guess you just kind of like lay a chain to a number of things that you want to reform and all along those lines. So definitely I know that there have been some budget cuts that have come at a cost to ordinary Argentinians, and I know, who knows, maybe we're going to have our own chainsaw and everything. But he is known as a libertarian and all along those lines, and they had their own chronic hyperinflation and long-suffering economy, and apparently he was trying to do some chainsaw welding and everything, and apparently they posted a rare consecutive monthly budget surpluses, and inflation has fallen sharper. But apparently even their flagship stock, Mervel, tracks around 200 of the country's most valuable listed companies, has soared almost 140% this year. But they're saying that the budget cuts have come at the cost of ordinary Argentina. So maybe we're going to get something like that as well, because they're saying the poverty rate has jumped above 50% from an already high level, and the economy, the third largest in Latin America, has slid even deeper into recession, and unemployment is on the rise. But I guess they were trying to do some of the budget cuts that Trump is talking about as well. So are we going to have something similar where this impacts us? Because even with the tariffs, Trump hasn't said that it's not going to impact our inflationary kind of things and everything. So if we get these budget cuts, will it impact us the way that it's impacting Argentina?
It's a definite maybe, Mark. It depends on how much and where they cut, whether or not it's actually going to hurt the economy or help the economy. Your friend Elon Musk, who's a neighbor of Jim Meade, last time I looked, says, oh, we're just going to eliminate $2 trillion. Okay, but I ran the numbers, and as they say in Pawn Stars, that ain't happening, because there's not $2 trillion that he can eliminate. In other words, it really, the math just doesn't add up. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's see, I got it on the economics board. Mm-hmm. There isn't enough. Wait. Economics doesn't show up here. Okay.
Well, you try to get that up.
Economics is on a different board, but there isn't enough money to cut $2 trillion out. So, like if you cut out transportation, agriculture, you destroy the Department of Education, destroy all these departments, it comes out to $260 billion. If you destroy every other department except for the Department of Defense, you don't even reach $1 trillion. So the only way you can get to $2 trillion, you have to cut the Department of Defense, cut the Department of Homeland Security, and cut veterans benefits, like all three of them. That's the only way you can get to $2 trillion, because we don't spend $2 trillion in discretionary spending. Hello, Elon, has he looked at this?
But Nick,
okay, I'll let you know the numbers. We spend $1.6 trillion on these departments, not $2 trillion, 1.6. So the only way he can get $2 trillion cuts, he must cut the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, eliminate all, not some, all discretionary expenditures, and cut veterans benefits.
But Nick and Jim, along those same kind of lines, maybe he learned from Milei, the Argentinian president, because apparently that president likes to brandish a chainsaw to symbolize his budget cuts, and he slashed the number of government and ministries to 8 from 18. So they had 18, now they went to 8 and everything, and they laid off more than 30,000 government employees so far. And I know that Trump has been talking about he wanted to do that as well, and he also scrapped energy and transport subsidies and halted virtually all the public infrastructure projects, ended most of the local subsidies to local governments, and frozen public sector wages and pensions. So it sounds like maybe he's learning from Trump instead of the other way around, but I'm not sure.
No, what I'm saying, and anybody can look at this. You go on to the website, the federal budget. No one reads it, but yours truly, I read it's only 184 pages. Okay, go through the numbers, and you will see that Elon Musk is FOS, full of it. There's absolutely no way, at least in 1 year, he can cut $2 trillion from the budget. It's impossible. When your discretionary spending is 1.6, you can't cut 2. Period. End. It's real simple math. So I don't know where Elon's getting off on this now.
Well, when Arnold Schwartz was governor of California, he brandished a big knife. You know, the way he looks so intimidating with that sort of thing, and he was going to take it to the budget. Well, you know, nothing really happened. Basically,
they had the Reagan administration. Yeah, Reagan had the Grace Commission. We're going to cut the budget. They didn't do anything. They did jack. Okay. And it's our job as media to hold these people accountable, especially when they're FOS.
And also, you know, they think they can bring a corporate mindset into the government, and they're two different animals.
Well, it's not just corporate. You know, Jim, it's basic math.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
You know, I assume.
Totally with you on this, Nick.
What?
I'm totally with you on this.
Yeah, I mean, I assume he's good at math. Any moron, in my opinion, can do the math on this. This is not high-level calculus or analytic geometry or Mobius strip.
Addition and subtraction.
You're just looking at pure add up the departments,
Mhm.
and it's right there, it's published. Add up the departments. You add up all the departments in the United States except for defense, you come out to 1.6 trillion. I'm going to cut 2. Oh, good. How are you going to do that? It doesn't make any sense. You can't. So the thing is, the only way you can do that, you've got to cut defense because it's another 800 billion. And you've got to get rid of the interest, which is another 800 billion. And you can't do that. And so the thing is, you got to cut Homeland Security, you got to cut the veterans benefits. So my conclusion, his statement is FOS. What gets me, Jim, is none of the media held these people accountable. And the reason why they didn't, I believe none of them read the 184-page budget. And, and I'm just going like,
Yeah, they probably didn't read it. I did have a question for both of you. I did have a question for both of you, and it comes down to something that I know we talk about quite often on this network and definitely on some of the investment shows, which is this notion of free market economy and along those lines. So how easy is it to switch from one economy to the other? And I'm asking sincerely because I don't know, but even the serious new rulers are saying that they want to shift to a free market economy, according to business leaders there. And I think they were a monarchy or something like that, or definitely a dictatorship. But how easy is it just to switch from one to the other?
That's a BS buzzword. It's just BS buzzword, free market economy.
Well, we saw one example. China opened up to a free market-based economy, but it was an authoritarian approach, and it had limited success.
Go figure that one out.
Yeah, and it comes at a cost, and are people willing to pay the cost? And the Chinese people were getting very upset, and so now they're exerting more control. So I think these people that are talking about and entering into a free market capitalist society don't know what they're talking about because they don't understand the pressures they're going to come under, and they're going to retreat back into suppression as their only mode of operation.
Yeah, but it's really buzzword. I like to look at cold hard facts along with cold hard numbers. And here's some other cold hard numbers. Mm-hmm. Okay, remember our total budget is around $6.1 trillion. Of that, we have 1.6 discretionary. The rest of it, Social Security and Medicare. Okay, one way that you can solve the deficit problem is to increase taxes. Oh my Lord, I'm a Republican. I can't do that. Wait a minute. Warren Buffett said, and I believe he's pretty cold, hard Republican, that Berkshire Hathaway paid $5 billion in taxes last year. He goes, if the Fortune 500 did it, you wouldn't have to pay any taxes. Well, I ran the numbers, and if he made that statement, which I don't believe he did, he's wrong also. If all 500 did, you're still fall short. You need the Fortune 1000 plus to pay $5 billion to get to $6 trillion. You just don't get there, Warren. So, and I'm sure Warren's a smart guy, so somewhere along the line, this was probably not interpreted correctly on the internet. But here's the point. Here's the point I'm getting at. Okay, so Berkshire Hathaway paid $5 billion in taxes. What did Microsoft pay? They paid $28 billion in taxes. I fell on my chair. Meta paid $16 billion in taxes. Alphabet paid like $20 billion. But you know who stiffed the U.S. government? Tesla. They paid nothing. Hello? And who else stiffed the government?
And Musk wants more.
Amazon, and he's right now visiting. Now, wait a minute. Amazon stiffed the government. Now, this year they actually paid a little bit, but 2 of the last 5 years they paid like nothing. Now, here's the problem, and this is what Warren Buffett was saying. Your corporate, you cannot allow companies like Tesla. I'm beating up Elon Musk because he's a complete fraud. Okay, to pay no taxes. Tesla paid no federal income tax at the corporate level, yet he still posted $15 billion in gains. So why isn't the media that's purportedly liberal pointing this out? I can tell you why. Number one, they're stupid. They don't bother to read the numbers. And number two, I think they're intimidated. But it is just pure, cold, hard facts. Tesla paid no taxes.
And his board rewarded him with an astronomical bonus.
Oh, it was I saw it. It was $50 billion, Jim. And you know what the court said? Here's what the court said. That's way too much, and they struck it down.
But there's a couple of court things that came out recently.
And I would get guys elected as president. Elon cried about the Delaware Chancery Court. Oh, I don't get my $50 billion
Poor Elon.
Poor
boy.
Elon. Poor Elon. But I did have a question because we talked about it on World Politics. We talked about it on World Edition, and apparently it has now come out that, and we've talked about it. I know that one of our even though I think he said he's got some now, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, and everything. But I know that Sasha, who's over there enjoying his vacation, is not a big fan of Bitcoin. But apparently, the U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve is out there now. So the Senate Republicans are proposing a Bitcoin National Reserve. So apparently, we're going to have a Bitcoin reserve. I guess it'll be like the gold reserve and some of the other reserves that are out there. So does this mean that Bitcoin is about to become legitimate? Because there are even some people that are saying it's going to cause a tectonic shift in personal finance as I guess more people try to get into Bitcoin.
My personal opinion, it's all garbage. And I have Bitcoin, but I just think it's just pure trash. The whole concept is, and it's just a matter of time before the governments decide that it is trash and they just get rid of Bitcoin altogether. I'm just waiting for the day that it dies. I'm shocked it hasn't died sooner. But
apparently it's not done. Apparently the
by
politicians.
the way, Jeff, I live in Barcelona, Spain now. I do not live in the United States. My wife hates Trump. To the point goes, we got to get out of the country. So we moved to Barcelona. So it says Europe, even though I have a Washington, D.C. background. But I'm actually beaming in from La Corte, Barcelona.
I've heard nothing but nice things about Barcelona. So I
What?
hope I've heard nothing but nice things about
Oh,
Barcelona.
they actually have a
I hope
test
you're very
tournament.
happy
They have the Sunway Sitges tournament, and they also had another one they just continued, Hospital Llobregat, and then they have another one on Sants. They have 3 major international tournaments in Barcelona every year, so it's pretty cool. And then on the chess side, as you know, in Singapore, Gukic lost, and now it's tied 6-6.
6-6.
Whoa, with only a couple games left. So
Couple of games
that's
left and
wrong.
everything. Hey, just really quickly, coming back to politics and everything like that, there is this whole notion of, and we've talked about it on other shows, monopolies, and sometimes the monopolies don't always win, even though, like we said, there are several major channels and monopolies in media. There are several in several industries, including pharmaceuticals and others. But apparently, the federal courts have said that in the supermarket field, they're going to block a $25 billion merger. So they were going to have Albertsons and Kroger get together, and the federal judges said, no, that's okay. That's too much of a mega merger, and we can't have that. So what are our thoughts around that? Because apparently Kroger and Albertsons can't team up and get together.
I have mixed feelings on that, because the thing is, remember, they didn't allow Sprint to merge with Frontier, where JetBlue was trying to take them over, and Sprint went bankrupt. I think the government doesn't realize is how tough this industry is, and these industries are. The airline industry is really tough. So they needed the merger, and they didn't let them have it, so they had to file bankruptcy. The problem with what we're discussing, which is the food industry, that is a real tough industry, Mark. You're talking about 1 to 2% maximum gross markup. The people on the food delivery, they don't make any money, So I wouldn't have any problem letting the merger go through.
What Nick is saying is correct. It's a very low margin industry, very difficult. But I worked for AT&T when it was split up into Baby Bells, so there is something to be said for when you are in control and can set the price, and there's no competition. There has to be taken action. But if this is something where someone doesn't dominate the industry and control the prices, then mergers are certainly a natural thing to happen. So everything has got to be seen in a case by case basis. You can't make.
And I agree with you. And if you want to use your antitrust weapon, use it against Google, use it against Facebook, use it against Amazon, use it against the Magnificent Seven. But the thing is, the government's too wimpy, that thing over there, to take on the real big challenges. So they're picking on the stupid little. They do it all the time. They pick on the stupid little farmers, of what, Kroger and Albertson. They won't face up to Google. Why not? Why not, wimps? Why not wimps?
It's also what's going to be driving Musk's cost cutting, and I'm sure the same thing about the cost cutting in Argentina. The people that will pay are the people who are voiceless, not the powerful.
So, the poor people are going to get hurt. In Washington, D.C., absolutely. The people are going to pay are going to be the poor people are going to pay. The
Yeah,
only question
veterans,
is how
for
are you gonna
example. There's plenty to cut in the Defense Department. Don't get me wrong.
You know,
But-
rich people are always going to do well. It's the poor people are going to get screwed. They've been getting screwed since Reagan, and they'll be continually getting screwed. They just are too stupid to figure out how they're going to get screwed. The latest screw is, of
And
course,
they vote against their best interests.
Well,
Yeah,
apparently,
well,
Jacoby's joining in from the background. He said a video. I'll try to bring it up on AI and everything. He also said that under federal financial litigation currently that will be in Trump's administration. Also, who is under financial litigation currently that will be in Trump's administration? People like Musk. And he did say that Google has to sell off Chrome, because I had heard that Google's about to sell off Chrome, which is their major search engine, and all along those lines. So maybe they'll get some pushback in some of their corporate power if they've got to sell off
Chrome
Chrome.
is their browser, not their search engine.
I mean, browser, right?
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's ubiquitous. So
But,
yeah.
but Jim, here's what I understand when the AT&T breakup took place and all the baby bells came in, that after a while, the baby bells collectively were worth more than AT&T.
Absolutely. And
Yeah, so actually the breakup was very favorable for us.
the one I worked for, Pac Bell, was supposed to be the weak sister, and it did extremely well. I was able to buy real estate in the Bay Area, which is hard to do, and because of how well it did. So it was all very, very good for me personally. But they underestimated how strong the baby bells were going to be. So breakups are not always bad. So all of these things, you can't, have a broad brush stroke and say merge is bad.
I agree with you. And the thing is, at first I would say, hey, screw Google. But when I saw they were paying $28 billion in corporate income taxes, maybe you don't want to screw Google. They're contributing a huge amount of money to the American government every year.
Right.
So if these companies,
that's why you should say that about California. We're paying an awful lot of taxes.
No, that's true. That's true. See, the way I look at it is real simple. If these companies are paying huge amounts of taxes, don't bother to break them up because they're contributing their fair share to the U.S. government. But you get companies like Tesla.
Zero.
Okay, that I got a real problem with Tesla. Okay, and Tesla is obviously an Elon Musk company, but they stiffed the U.S. government. Now, Elon himself, I believe, did pay taxes on his $260 billion net worth. Do you only paid in income taxes?
No.
$2.5 billion.
Yeah. See, these guys know all
of his net worth. Can we do some math here? What's that percentage of his net worth?
Well, you think about Trump and his dad, Fred Trump, who said, paying taxes.
I'm going to help you out. He had to pay 1% of his net worth.
Unbelievable. I don't get that lucky.
Does anybody here pay 1%?
I would just pay 1% to my state, let alone to the government in general. Yeah, no.
The reason he wants to be Trump's friend is that he wants to make sure, and he's a smart guy. He wants to make sure when things change, and they will change, that he's still going to be in power. He's still going to be doing really well.
I bought a Tesla when they were first coming out, and I love the technology. I still do, but I would never buy another one because of that guy.
Because of Elon. In chess, he's a grandmaster. I mean, and remember, Peter Thiel, his partner, was a national master, a real top player.
Oh yeah, I played him.
In chess, he may not be that good of a player, Elon, but in business, he definitely is a grandmaster. I mean,
sure.
He bet on the right horse. He's bet he's put a lot of bets down that were bad and turned them good. Tesla was a bad bet, I thought. But same with Jeff Bezos. He made bad bet. When I was in Seattle and I was running my pension company, we were making more money than Amazon. Amazon was $1.5 billion in debt with nothing to show for it. I'm not kidding. And the news was Amazon's going to go under. The only question is when. That's when I was there in the year 2000 in Seattle. And we were making like $500,000, $1 million a year. I'm going, hey, we're better off than Amazon. We're not $1.5 billion in the hole.
Right.
But look what happened. Jeff Bezos turned it around. And you got to look what happened with Elon. He figured he can beat, Elon figured he could beat Detroit.
Speaking of beating Detroit, we've got this video that's coming from Jacoby, and he found it. It's apparently one he wanted us to check out, called The Biggest Lie About AI. So let's check out what's going on and what the big lie about AI is and everything like that.
Fascinating. Yeah.
As
I'm
tech
all
companies
ears.
race to win the AI revolution, the amount of data centers that they are opening is growing exponentially. This requires increasing amounts of fresh water and energy. In 2023 alone, Google used the equivalent of 1/8 of Lake Athabasca to cool their data centers. And Microsoft recently committed to restarting nuclear reactors like 3 Mile Island, the site of the 1978 partial nuclear meltdown, to create enough energy for their growing amount of AI-intensive data centers. Now, there is a lot of talk right now about the future potential of AI. I'm working on a video about Google Mind and AlphaFold's ability to create breakthrough medications, and there's a ton of excitement and optimism in other spaces too. But one thing we know for sure about AI right now is that Microsoft, Tesla, Meta, all these companies, they're building massive amounts of data centers in order to power their AI systems in their race to monopolize artificial intelligence, and this will have a huge impact on our futures. AI technology relies on data centers that require so much energy that they get so hot that they need water pumped through them to be cooled in order to function. This is a Google data center. Those colorful pipes, those aren't wires. That's kind of what I thought initially. Those are pipes of cold, clean water which flow through the system, keeping the technology from overheating. In 2023 alone, Microsoft data centers consumed 7.8 million cubic meters of fresh water, up 34% from the year before, because of how many more data centers they were running to power their new AI technology pursuits. The water that cools and cleans the technological systems needs to be free of impurities, bacteria, debris, and dirt. This is the reason why these data centers rely on fresh water for cooling. The water needs to be extremely clean. Therefore, the water is taken from the same sources that we use to drink, cook, and wash with. So how much water are you consuming every time you use an AI technology like ChatGPT? Based on Microsoft's 2022 annual report on fresh water used for cooling systems, asking ChatGPT 10 to 55 questions or prompts uses roughly 500 milliliters of fresh water. I think this is important to know and remember that when you're using AI technology like ChatGPT, there is an environmental impact. It makes sense that we haven't really thought about this that much. Companies aren't talking about this as they expand their AI initiatives. Amazon is planning to spend $100 billion in the next 10 years to build data centers around the world, consuming massive amounts of energy and water. In fact, earlier this year, they secured the approval to build 2 new data centers near Santiago, Chile. Santiago, Chile, I have been there once, that's why I know how to say it so well, is already a water-stressed city. So there has been mass protests and concern as people are wondering where this fresh water is going to come from, because it's likely going to come from their personal freshwater sources. In the Dalles, Oregon, I've never been there, I don't know if it is pronounced Dalles, Google has 3 data centers, and 1/4 of the city's water supply is being consumed by these 3 data centers, and they're planning to build 2 more. There has been a lack of regulation and standards about knowing how much water these data centers are consuming, because this is all quite new technology, but we are getting more transparency than ever before. Based on estimates from 2022, a mid-sized data center uses about 300,000 gallons of water a day, equal to the water consumption of about 100,000 homes. Microsoft recently announced it had signed a 20-year deal to purchase energy from the dormant 3 Mile Island nuclear reactor, the one that had a meltdown in the 1970s. The reason was to create nuclear energy to power their growing need for data centers in their AI race. Now, I am all for this. I'm all for nuclear energy, but this is only being used to power data centers. These nuclear reactors aren't being used to create energy for us. This is all at a time when we're trying to figure out how to get energy that isn't going to be burning fossil fuels. But again, these nuclear reactors are just powering data centers. But as stated earlier, I do think that AI can be very important in specific fields. AlphaFold, an AI system developed by Google DeepMind, won a Nobel Prize in chemistry because, among other things, it can predict and design protein structures. This AI technology could see breakthroughs in our understanding of disease, create new medicines, and all of this we would not be able to do without assistance of AI. AI, in theory, can help renewable energy systems become more efficient. But at the same time, one of our biggest issues as humanity is the climate crisis and water scarcity. So we need to balance the pros and cons of AI right now, as all of these companies sort of skyrocket creating these data centers, to make sure they don't do more harm than good. I think this video is just about us understanding. I'm back in school right now doing my master's, and lots of people are just using ChatGPT all the time, I think it's good for us to think about the water consumption that goes along with us using ChatGPT in our day-to-day life. I think we need to put pressure on these companies to figure out ways to maybe reuse this water or have the fresh water end up in productive places like on farms. Hopefully this video and public understanding and increased transparency around these data centers will help us understand how this AI tech actually works. If these data centers become powered by renewable energy, nuclear energy, who knows, it could create breakthroughs in innovation. This could be a good thing. But this video was just about you and I understanding what's going on right now with these data centers. Thanks for watching us all these years. We've been doing this for 12 years, which is insanity. For all you youngins out there, do not ask how old we are. Hit that like and subscribe button. I don't even know if that's still what people do. And thanks for watching. We will see you soon for a new science video. Peace.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, I did know when I was in Seattle that and Wenatchee, which was a big city outside, that Microsoft put a lot of their data centers there because there was a lot of water that they could do to cool down their data centers in Wenatchee, Washington. But here's something very interesting. You got to do the calculus on this one. Maybe I can figure this one out. There's a country that has more lakes than any other country in the world, and that is right north of us, Canada. Okay. And one problem with Canada, of course, because it's so cold, is that the lakes were inaccessible many times during the year. But now, because we have global warming, the lakes are accessible now. So my question, riddle me this, Batman, is why isn't the data centers being set up in Canada, where there's plenty of freshwater lakes? Like, no kidding. Go look at the Northwest Territories. I had to fly over that to go to Iceland, and you just go fly hours and hours of lakes and lakes. You never saw so many freshwater lakes in your life. Of course, I flew during the summer. During the winter, it's frozen over. It used to be frozen over. Now, because of global warming, it's available. So I would not be surprised, because you're talking to some smart guys. They're going to start setting up the data centers in Canada near the lakes, and there's plenty of fresh water there.
That's a great idea, Nick. But the problem is that we think these are infinite resources and they're finite. And the same problem exists for the digital currencies. Bitcoin, for example, requires a tremendous amount of energy in the cooling systems and the data centers to build a Bitcoin. So, you know, these types of things it's not just AI, it's not just Bitcoin, it's a whole new technologies, and they're demanding energy, they're demanding water. And, you know, these are not, unless we get solve the fusion process and we have unlimited energy available to us probably in the next decade or two, you know, these things are going to come back and be unsolvable. We're reaching a breaking point here where we're going from, you know, we have the technology to deal with it, to we do not have the technology to deal with
Jim, along those same lines, there was another issue that came out from your neck of the woods, because I think, if I remember correctly, you're not that far, or might even be in San Francisco. But apparently, I know we talked about on this show before, there was this notion, because I said I wanted one since I don't drive and everything, but there was this whole notion of driverless cars and driverless taxis. And apparently, early today, General Ford pulled the plug on their effort to develop a fleet of driverless taxis, and will focus on driver assistance features that require a driver to be ready to take control of the car. So it won't just be a driverless taxi. So it says they need to drop their robo-tax efforts, given the considerable time and resources that would be needed to scale the business, along with the incredibly competitive robo-taxi market. I didn't know that there was a competitive robo-taxi market, but apparently there is.
Yeah, well, Tesla's invested a great deal in it, and I want no part of it. Driver assistance, I love it. You know, if I go 10 miles over the speed limit, my car beeps at me. So, you know, I'm not going to get a speeding ticket.
But why do we need cars anyway? I don't even own a car anymore. I sold all my cars before I moved to.
Yeah, you're in Europe, man.
I'm in Europe, baby. Europe. I have high-speed rail throughout Spain, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to Zaragoza on a high-speed rail line, which is faster than a car. It goes 300 kilometers an hour. I get around here through buses and cars, and if I need to rent a car, I just rent a taxi. And see, the United States needs to change their stinking thinking. They're relying heavily on an antiquated turn of the other century technology, which is called the automobile. And China and Spain, a lot of countries aren't. They're relying on high-speed rail mass transportation, bus lines. We even have trams here. So
The bullet train while I was in Japan. Yeah, the bullet train was great. The bullet train in Japan was great.
Yeah, the bullet trains in Japan. I mean, the thing is, so why are we obsessed with this an idiotic?
We've been obsessed with cars for a while.
We can't pass the legislation because it requires too many municipalities to sign off to build a bullet train in California.
Well, that was one of the problems they had here. They were trying to do it through Raleigh, Durham, and North Carolina, and Duke wouldn't allow them to do it. And so all of a sudden,
Duke vetoed it.
It was stupid.
Duke vetoed it and everything. Hey, I got to tease you and everything, Nick, because you're over there in Spain. And as I was looking at stories and even some that had a political front and everything, there is popular drinks, and some of them are popular even if they are countries that are at each other's throats. Speaking of Israel and Palestine, but even Ireland and Britain have been at each other's throats for decades and centuries and everything. But apparently there is a shortage of Guinness that exists in the British area and everything. So apparently they're struggling to keep track of the Guinness situation.
Now that's a world crisis.
That's a major world crisis because there's a shortage of Guinness, and apparently people are saying they can't get their Guinness. So fans of the legendary Irish Stout are actually saying that, wait a minute, we need to get our
Guinness is different in Ireland than
in
it is in the United States. It tastes different. Yeah. Tastes better in Ireland.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it tastes better in Ireland versus it tastes the way it tastes there. But yeah, even CNN, you talk about what teams are covering. CNN was explaining why the beloved beverage has become so popular that bars are running out. So they found a way to do a whole story on CNN about the nature of the shortage of Guinness and everything.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, to me that becomes a minor issue. One thing I do like they have in Spain, and this is going to hit me hard when I decide to purchase a home. You'll love this. They have a 10% tax on home purchases that goes directly to our friends, the government of Spain. They don't have that in the United States, but I look at that's actually a good idea because you have all these rich people that love to buy homes. And if you get hit with a 10% tax, I mean, you're used to paying an agent's commission, okay? Rather than that, the agent becomes the federal government. They take 10%. I don't know how much money that would raise, but I think it would raise a heck of a lot of money. Better than manipulating interest rates. 10% upfront to the good old U.S. government on every real estate.
Well, you're gonna love this other story because this comes back to politics as well. And Jim, you're gonna love this as well because it involves California and it involves our favorite people, the millionaires. Because Brian Johnson is a world famous biohacker. He's definitely the centimillionaire. So that's under a billionaire. I'm not sure where that falls in the whole category, but he made his fortune selling Venmo for $800 million, and now apparently he's spending $2 million a year attempting to reverse the aging process and trying to not die. So apparently this is his goal is that he's trying not to die and biohack his way into, I guess, living forever. So I guess he was not content just creating Venmo and making all that money off of Venmo, but now, because that's a major pay tools that people use and everything, but now he wants to totally reverse the aging process, and he's only spending $2 million a year attempting to do it. So, are you going to try this? Are you going to try to discover the fountain of youth, Nick, and everything?
There are things out there you can't reverse the aging process, but you can freeze it. So the thing is, to a certain extent, you can slow it down. But I hate to say it right now, the best thing working in your favor is good genes. Okay. And that's a very serious crisis.
I think
Shaquille goes, hey, he doesn't have anything to drink, buddy, so that makes him a serious crisis. But there could be a lot of money made in selling snake oil on things that can slow down the aging process.
Well, there is some legitimate medical research that's been producing results. And in terms of the aging process has not been well understood, and they're scratching the surface of it. So the idea that you can't do it is not true, but the idea that we know how to do it or will soon, that's also just wishful thinking. But you can slow down the aging process.
I
There's
Slow
agree.
down the aging process, but isn't part of the problem what I just alluded to? Whether it's Peter Thiel, who apparently you've met, and I've never met him. I think that Nick interviewed him along with Kim sometime.
Well, I
Back
didn't- I
everything
never
in this
did.
guy that is head of Venmo and all these other people, including Elon Musk, isn't part of the problem that the folks that are spending all of this money are those that have the resources, and are they actually, even if he discovers the aging process, is he going to give it back to the average Joe and everything along those lines? So that's my thing, is that of course if you got millions of dollars,
if he can monetize it, he will. But
Well, what you said though was very interesting, Jim. There's a lot of research on slowing down the aging process, and I have actually seen some of it, and some of that stuff actually does work. But here's another interesting cold hard facts. In the year 1900, if you were born, what was your life expectancy?
right.
Okay, I had to look this up, so I know what it is.
Oh, okay.
In 1900 in the United States, your life expectancy was age 47. Seriously. Okay, and part of it was because we had no vaccines. Seriously. Once the vaccines came out, it was kind of a major breakthrough, pushing the average life expectancy up to where now in the United States, it's 77. In Spain, where I live, it's 84. It's not 77, it's 84. And a lot of it, they say, deals with diet. In other words, you have the good old-fashioned Mediterranean seafood diet,
Right.
as
right.
opposed to the
There's very little question in my mind.
as opposed to the Big Mac diet over in the United States.
Right.
Okay, so there are some things that you can do to increase it. Now with AI and with certain breakthroughs potentially in RNA technology and stem cell research, it may be quite possible that people, the next age group, your normal life expectancy won't be 84 or 77. It could be 104, or it could be 113. Seriously, there's nothing that says that can't be done with some breakthrough, especially in RNA technology. Now, when we see all this stuff about AI, and I find it very interesting because it's smart computers using data to come up with conclusions. Then you have idiots who say, I don't believe in science. And then they post it on the internet like they know better, and they don't. And so the way I look at all the advancements in AI will be destroyed by the morons that run your country right now. Remember, I'm in the space.
But Nick, Nick, doesn't the same thing go for even the ways we teach different things? 'Cause I know earlier today, and we could have a whole show on this on World Politics. We were talking about transgender studies and everything along those lines. And I personally think that there are no courses that are being taught in that, but most people are learning that there are varying ways that you can exist. So there is no one model of a family, because there are different styles of families. I mean, you got interracial families, you got mixed families of different genders and everything like that. If I chose to get married and identify as an elephant, that would be another form of a family. Don't worry, Nick. Don't worry. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to identify as an elephant. Or
You don't want to get married.
I don't want to get married either.
Well, I mean, see that deals with general morals and ethics. I mean, stuff like that. And of course, in the U.S., we're very inconsistent. Like years ago, the Mormons were prosecuted because they had multiple wives.
Mm-hmm.
Would they be prosecuted today? Probably not. In other words, that's part of the reason they don't go after the people in Colorado City that have multiple wives. Because if you're going to prosecute the Mormons for having multiple wives, well, you could prosecute the LGBTIA community. So it's the same logic. I haven't seen too many cases advance on that particular area, but to me that really makes sense. Transgender community, I don't have any problems with it. I had transgender people working for my company. What I really have a problem with, and that's because I have granddaughters, okay, is that the males, especially who determine they're females, and I had one cousin who did that, they become trans anger. They become, how do you say it, trans aggressive. And all of a sudden, I demand to be in women's sports. I got a real problem with that. I don't want my grandchildren being forced to compete against a biological male in sports. And they go, oh, you're discriminating against me. No, you're not. You can play in men's sport. Or you know what? You can do like a lot of people like me, because I was asthmatic. You don't get to play. Too bad. So sad. And that's just life. And so, but I really do have a real problem with the aggressive. And I try to figure out, why are the trans people so aggressive?
Well, I think that's a
Because they're
generalization
getting
you
pumped
shouldn't
up
make,
with
Nick.
male hormones. They're, I mean, it's just,
Like I said, I
it
think
is
that's
what it is. So once you stop the
even with saying
transgression,
it as
I
a
don't have any problems with it.
generalization. I mean, that's like saying that what they used to say that certain minority groups had certain traits or another trait and everything, and they use that to make a stereotype, because we know that even from African American sports and other sports as well. So that's a stereotype that can exist, that people can sit there and
Yeah,
make.
your problem may be with testosterone, but I don't think we can generalize.
No, it's just you see in sports right now. You see a lot of
Well,
these men.
in the Olympics, they have testosterone testing, and that's a disqualifier. So there are ways to handle this. But the thing is to do it with compassion, with a sense of compassion, because you're not trying to punish somebody for their life.
And that's even the article that I saw earlier. Was the person was a transgender person, and they was teaching a class, but if they taught or brought up transgender, they were just letting people know that there could be different family structures of different sorts. We're not all husband, wife, and the 2.3 kids, or whatever the average is, but there are a variety, which is the point I was making, of styles of family that are out there that exist now that might not have been as popular back in the day, or they might not have been, or they might have been swept under the rug, or not as exposed as they are now and everything. But there have been a variety of family styles for decades.
Well, I say I would like to hear from a transgender person, because
we've had two or three on this network, and yes, Ryan Copley has been on. We've had another one that's on the Online Dinner Party. You don't watch your own network, because I've had two or three transgender people on, and
the Online Dinner Party's on like every day almost. I mean, as a matter of fact, I sent you over the Benedictine nuns, Mark, to see if
I saw that they were trying to get
back
back on.
That would be really great. I'm going to be traveling that day, so I can't be on it and stuff like that. Yeah. But, I do believe in the old legal theory of notice and opportunity to be heard. So the thing is, I want to hear their viewpoint. It's not going to change my viewpoint, but it might. Maybe they have something else to say. I just
have an open mind.
Yeah, guys have an open mind, because I know one of the ones I had was, and I don't know if Ryan Copley won, but he was running for office. I want to say that may be a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I want to say it was in the Northeast, like either Connecticut or Delaware, and they were running for office. So I know I've had at least two that have been on, because one was a performer and it was transgender. So it might have been three, but I remember Ryan was running for office.
Yeah, well,
it's a fact of life now. My nephew is transgender, and I would say, went from male to female, and he's a pacifist. There's no aggression coming out of that guy.
Yeah, well, my cousin Kevin Murphy used to work for my dad's company in Tampa. Became transgender. He was a Facebook friend, and I would have had him on the air if Facebook didn't wipe me out completely. Right. During their purges. I don't know how I got purged, but I actually they wiped out. I had like 5,000-6,000 of my cousins on a Facebook page, and they wiped me out overnight, and I can't get back. And so I'm going to have to build it up again and find these people. It takes years. I mean, seriously. Mm-hmm. So that made me not a fan of your friend Mark Zuckerberg, and until I found he paid a lot of corporate taxes, I wasn't a fan. Now I found out he paid a lot in corporate taxes. I'm not. He's back sort of in good graces, but he did wipe out a lot of Facebook.
I told you, I don't even know who. I don't even know.
Valid Facebook complaints out there.
Well, I want to go over the companies that are paying their fair share, and the ones that are basically.
That would be really interesting.
That would be interesting. I already told you that LinkedIn wiped me out, and I haven't.
You wouldn't believe some of them that are paying, like Zippo, 3M paid nothing. Tesla paid nothing. There was one other.
But Kamala Harris said that during her campaign, and it went nowhere. No one cared.
No one cared
about her idea was to get them to pay their fair share. That she said that on many occasions. And everybody went. That was with her.
What happened? What happened to the alternative minimum tax? I mean, the thing is, they passed alternative minimum tax.
Yeah,
these people
I remember that.
Around that too.
Yeah,
I just thought, oh, here's another reason Elon donated to Trump. You'll love this. Okay, this is again cold hard facts. Tesla is being audited because they're paying no taxes. from the year 2015 to 2018.
Should be a red flag. Yeah.
Seriously. Okay. And I can tell you one thing, because I've worked in tax for 40 years. The worst thing you have is an auditor coming in there and trying to scrape and find places you took deduction. And I guarantee you, a good auditor will cream Tesla out a lot of money. The reason he backed Trump was quite simple. Guess who has the ability to pull the audit? Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
So the minute he backed Trump with what, 200-300 million, didn't matter, because I can tell you in the audit it could be a multi-billion-dollar loss for him.
Well, that's not part of the executive branch, though. I mean, he doesn't really have the power to do that.
You don't underestimate the Don. The Don.
No, I understand it, but he would pull his own audits too.
Of course. See what he's going to do. Watch, these audits are going to disappear.
I don't doubt you of it.
Don't doubt me at all. No, the audits against Tesla will disappear. Mark my word. And I'll tell you why. First of all, have you seen this was this part of the campaign? Did Kamala Harris point this out?
Kamala, yeah.
Did she point it out?
Point out what?
Oh, that Teslas was being audited.
I don't think she mentioned that. I shouldn't speak for her because I didn't see everything.
Did the media mention this at all?
Well, I don't know. And I do know that she was talking about the general subject of corporations that are ripping people off.
Remember, Republicans love conspiracy theories. Here's my conspiracy theory. Your friend Elon Musk puts a lot of money into Trump so he can get the audit pulled out of Tesla. That's my theory. And unfortunately, I've seen stuff like that happen. So
that's not a conspiracy theory. That's just one guy doing one thing. And, I do believe that there's merit to that argument. So I don't put it into the overall genre of conspiracy theories.
Okay, it may not
follow the money kind of reasoning.
It's
time to end because we got to get ready for the next show, which is
okay.
St. Thea Academy in Mama Noni, which is about education. So we're going to go to our education
and
show.
Nick Franco is still dead.
Francisco Franco. Well, that's a whole nother conversation here. That's a real touchy subject here, especially in Barcelona. We bombed Barcelona for years. We got 70% of the bombs from the nationalists hitting the Republicans. By the way, the Republicans here were basically communist. So people don't know when you say Republican here. Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation.